So good morning, Professor Hellman.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks.
Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me about research design.
Yeah, okay. My favorite topic.
It is.
Yeah, or one of them.
Well, as a student, I can tell you it's important, but I would never tell you it's my favorite topic.
No, okay.
But maybe after today it will be.
Yeah, let me try making it into a favorite topic.
All right. Well, first thing, what is research design?
Well,
and why is it important? Is
Yeah.
it as important as I've been told?
Yeah, is it important? Yeah, well, in a way, I have to admit, you can conduct research without a research design or without a project design. And I actually did that when I did my first fieldwork in 1995 for my PhD thesis.
Okay.
I didn't even have a method course before they kind of threw them out in the field. Yeah, so you can do it, but it took me like 7 years to actually write the thesis, and I was considered very fast at the time.
Okay.
So you can do it, but after we have started to actually work in a systematic way with our students to learn them how to write a research design or project design, and we do that on bachelor level, on master level, and PhD level, we have kind of noticed two things, and that is that they are actually able to keep the time frames that they have for the thesis, or well, more or less at least. so they design projects that they can actually conduct in the time that they get for their thesis. And secondly, we haven't done a really proper research on that, but we have the feeling that it has really enhanced the quality of the thesis. And thirdly, maybe I should also say that the most happiest people are the supervisors. Because then when the students come to the supervisors, they have a project, they know what they're going to do. So the supervisors can start immediately to work with collection of data, interviews, analyze, and the production of their texts.
Okay.
So
it is the students who come up with this research design before even speaking with the supervisors and telling them what it is they plan to do.
It is, yeah. At least on bachelor and master level, because there we have research design courses that they have to take, or it's a mixture of research design and learning methods.
Yes.
So in these courses, they actually produce their own, project description or research. They design their projects. And after that, they get a supervisor to write their bachelor or master thesis. On the PhD level, it's a bit different, because then they have already, when they applied for the program, handed in a kind of rough project design. So they have a supervisor from the first day, but during the first year, they have a lot of different courses, but they also produce a project design that they present in the end of that year on a seminar that is open for the whole department, so they get feedback on their project designs.
Okay, but you were saying earlier that working with a design, with a preset design, a pre-thought out design, would enhance the work, it would speed it up and improve the quality. But I was thinking, I've been taught about grounded theory, and that is the work emerges as you do the work. So do you have a comment on that, or am I jumping the gun?
No, but I think that when we get into discussion more what a research design is, then I would say that working with grounded theory would be something that you discussed in the theory analytical part of the research design, where you set up, you're saying that, okay, this is how I'm going to theorize or analyze my material. So a research design is kind of broader, more inclusive than only taking up questions about theory, but I would say that would fit into the section of theory and method in the research design or project design. So maybe we should talk a little bit about the kind of overall design.
Yes, what exactly is research design?
Yeah, because sure.
No, I was just wondering. I'm hoping this is loaded. But all right, talk and we'll.
Okay, what was that?
All right. So what is research design?
So a research design is mainly the overall kind of objective of a research design is to answer three questions, and that is what you're going to do, what is it that you're going to research, why is that relevant, why are you going to do this? What's the reasons? And then how will you do that? So it's what are you going to do? Why are you going to do it? And what are you going, or how are you going to do it? Did I say that right?
So you said what,
why, and how? Yeah,
yes.
What, why, and how. So, and let's go into that a little bit,
yes.
because that can be expressed in different ways in different designs, of course. But these are the basic questions that, after reading your project description or design, the reader should understand these 3 questions. So, and we'll come back to that later. I think we can have a kind of sketching out kind of standard research design. But I think the how, the what question, yeah, sure. The what question is really important. It states some sort of problem or research area that you want to get into. What is the problem that you're addressing in this research? Is it a question about political economy, or is it about migration, or is it a gender study, or what kind of study is it, and what kind of problem is it that you want to discuss? Is it segregation? Is it race relations?
Is it a problem in the organization, like lack of morale? Or
Exactly, yeah. That's a good example, because then you can go into organization and saying that, well, I'm interested in researching these problems, work ethics, for instance. So that's really important, and that often comes in the introduction, and then it ends in some sort of aim and research questions. But that's not enough. I think that the second thing is why is this important? So you have to state the relevance of this. Is this an empirical problem that you need to know more about? Is it a kind of theoretical problem? Is it a political and social problem? Is it a problem that you said an organization is interested in solving? Or what's the relevance of this problem? Does it have an academic relevance? And who is going to, benefit from this
in our
research?
work, it would be organizations, industry, corporate, Jamaica, corporate, Jamaican government.
Exactly. So they should also see what they can benefit from this study.
Especially if we're asking for funding.
This is crucial in Sweden when you ask for funding, that you produce a research design.
Okay.
So so all these stakeholders, or all the people you address, have to be able to actually see the relevance for them in this project, and what they can gain from that project. So that's the what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. And then it's really important, at least for your supervisors and others, to see how you're going to do this. Okay, what kind of methods are you going to use? Are you going to use quantitative or qualitative methods, or, as you said, grounded theory? What kind of concepts and theories are you going to use? And this is quite a large part of the research design, because there you also state, if you're going to interview people, who are the people you're going to interview, and why have you made the selection that you made? Do you have access to these people? Do you need to have access to databases? So you have to go through all this in the method sections, both what kind of methods you're going to use, how you're going to use them, how they connect to your analytical concepts and theories. But also, if you have access to this material, do you have the language skills, and do you have the financial resources, and so on. So that's a really, really important part of the project description as well, or research design.
And I imagine too that the resources that you have actually influence your design, because
it does.
You spoke about you just mentioned qualitative and quantitative data. Obviously, if I don't have access to a wide group, I might do a case study or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. And you have also to consider your own skills. You have skills in working with quantitative or qualitative data. And then you have, so for instance, for my own case, I'm used to work with qualitative data, So when I design my research questions, they of course have to be designed so I can use or apply qualitative data to actually answer them.
Okay. You earlier on you were talking with me and you mentioned, because I'd asked you where you came down on the argument. You said you don't actually come down on any side of the qualitative quantitative debate, but they answer different questions. Can you elaborate on that for me? That's what you told me earlier.
I don't take side in the debate between quantitative and qualitative data. I think that's a very strange debate. To me,
Mixed methods,
of course, you can use that. But to me also, quantitative and qualitative methods do not oppose each other. They complement each other.
Okay, yeah.
So they answer different questions and they use different materials to answer these questions. So, do I have time for a kind of more extended example?
Sure.
It's an example that I will use also in a lecture next week.
Okay, great.
So this was, I think it was last year or 2 years ago in Sweden. We have this Swedish Research Council where I think all scholars or researchers in Sweden send in proposals there every year. So they have thousands of proposals every year to assess. Mm-hmm. And then you have this group of like 10 or 12 people who have, a group of proposals that they assess and then they rank them from top to bottom. Mm-hmm. So then they did a quantitative analysis of this selection and noted that men had a much higher success rate than women in an overall sense.
Okay.
So that was a quantitative analysis of the outcome of this selection process, right? So that was a fact. But the data didn't tell us why that happened.
Of course,
yeah.
Yes.
So we knew that it could be all kind of explanations. I mean, they might be writing less good proposals and so on, but it could also be other explanations. So the next step was that during the next round of applications, the year after, they actually used ethnographers to sit in these discussions and noting the discussions and how they discussed the different proposals. And just to mention one thing that they actually noted during these discussions was that when men in their curriculum, in their CV, stated that they had co-authored papers with others, the response from the reviewers was that this is good. He's networking. He's reaching out to other researchers and so on. So it was a very positive, something positive.
But for the ladies, they needed help.
Exactly. So when they had exactly the same, they co-authored things. People started to talk about that. They are not self-confident. They need help of others. So in their case, it was considered negative.
Yes.
So this was a qualitative, analysis of what did actually happen in this room where they assessed. And there were a lot of other things as well, of course. Okay. But so just to tell you, that's my take on this, that we do use different data, we answer different questions, but they are complementary, and we can have more complex views of society using both these methods or approaches, I would say.
Okay. So just to sum up, I suppose. Yeah. You're saying that your research design answers your what, your why, and your how.
Yeah.
Your what is a description of the specific problem of the research area, aim, and research questions that you ask. The why discusses the relevance of your research. Why is it relevant? Is it meant to develop new theory, fill a research gap, produce new empirical knowledge, etc.? And the how is the methodological part. The methods that you're going to use, do you have access to your informants, etc.? What is your time limit? Because popular wisdom, anecdotal evidence is that qualitative research takes longer. and what are the limitations you have in your resources, and what kind of theories you will use, what analytical concepts you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned, and should also mention ethics. Ethics usually goes into this and have a subheading somewhere in the proposal.
Okay.
Usually in the methodological part, that what kind of ethical issues might be raised using this type of method. But could I just you mentioned time, that it the kind of convention that qualitative method takes more time than quantitative. At least when I guide my students, I'm saying that it might take the same time, but when you plan for a qualitative research, you have to plan for a long time after you have actually collected your data or produced your data for the analysis.
The transcription.
Transcriptions and also the analysis and writing up your data into an ethnographic or a text where you present them. Because that is what takes time in qualitative research. And that's also something that's important to get into the design. Actually saying that, this is the time I will spend in the field, but then I have enough time after field to actually write up my data and do the transcriptions and so on.
Okay.